1836. In which battle of 1805 did Admiral Lord Nelson die, achieving a significant naval victory? A. The Battle of Trafalgar. B. The Battle of Waterloo. C. The Battle of Jutland. D. The Battle of the Nile. Answer: A. The Battle of Trafalgar. Admiral Lord Nelson died in the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805, achieving a significant naval victory that established British naval supremacy for over a century. Question 37. What is the historical significance of the Battle of Culloden in 1746? A. It ended the Jacobite Rebellion. B. It began the English Civil War. C. It marked the start of the Industrial Revolution. D. It resulted in Scottish independence. Answer: A. It ended the Jacobite Rebellion. The Battle of Culloden in 1746 is historically significant as it ended the Jacobite Rebellion, crushing the last major attempt to restore the Stuart monarchy in Britain, and led to harsh penalties and cultural changes in Scotland. Question 38. Who was the UK Prime Minister during the Suez Crisis of 1956? A. Anthony Eden. B. Harold Wilson. C. Winston Churchill. D. Margaret Thatcher. Answer: A. Anthony Eden. Anthony Eden was the UK Prime Minister during the Suez Crisis of 1956, a diplomatic and military conflict that damaged the UK's international standing. Question 39. What was the primary effect of the Black Death on medieval England's population and economy? A. It led to a population increase. B. It caused severe depopulation and economic hardship. C. It boosted economic growth through technological innovation. D. It had little to no effect on the population. Answer: B. It caused severe depopulation and economic hardship. The Black Death had a devastating effect on medieval England, causing severe depopulation and resulting in significant economic hardship and social changes. Question 40. In which year did the UK first introduce decimal currency? A. 1961. B. 1971. C. 1981. D. 1991. Answer: B. 1971. The UK first introduced decimal currency in 1971, transitioning from pounds, shillings, and pence to a system based on pounds and pence, simplifying transactions and accounting. Question 41. What treaty ended the Revolutionary War between Great Britain and the United States? A. The Treaty of Paris, 1783. B. The Treaty of Ghent. C. The Treaty of Versailles. D. The Treaty of London. Answer: A. The Treaty of Paris, 1783. The Treaty of Paris in 1783 officially ended the Revolutionary War, recognizing the independence of the United States from Great Britain. Question 42. What is considered the first major reform act extending the franchise in the UK, passed in 1832? A. The Magna Carta. B. The Reform Act of 1832. C. The Equal Franchise Act of 1928. D. The Representation of the People Act 1918. Answer: B. The Reform Act of 1832. The Reform Act of 1832 is considered the first major reform act extending the franchise in the UK, which widened the vote to include more of the middle class and reformed parliamentary constituencies. Question 43. What major social reform did the Married Women's Property Act of 1882 achieve? A. It allowed married women to inherit property. B. It granted women the right to vote. C. It allowed married women to own and control their own property. D. It established maternity leave for working women. Answer: C. It allowed married women to own and control their own property. The Married Women's Property Act of 1882 was a significant social reform that allowed married women in England to own, buy, and sell their own property and keep their own earnings. Question 44. Who was the primary British negotiator at the Treaty of Versailles in 1919? A. David Lloyd George. B. Winston Churchill. C. Neville Chamberlain. D. Anthony Eden. Answer: A. David Lloyd George. David Lloyd George was the primary British negotiator at the Treaty of Versailles in 1919, playing a key role in the peace talks that ended World War I and reshaped Europe. Question 45. Which monarch issued the Proclamation of 1763 attempting to stabilize relations with Native American tribes? A. King George III. B. Queen Victoria. C. King Edward VII. D. King Henry VIII. Answer: A. King George III. King George III issued the Proclamation of 1763, which was intended to stabilize relations with Native American tribes through the regulation of expansion and settlement on tribal lands. Question 46. What was the primary purpose of the Sankey Commission of 1919 in the context of British coal mining? A. To nationalize the coal industry. B. To improve safety standards in coal mines. C. To address labor disputes and improve workers' conditions. D. To increase coal production efficiency. Answer: C. To address labor disputes and improve workers' conditions. The Sankey Commission of 1919 was established to address labor disputes in the British coal mining industry and recommended improvements in workers' wages and conditions. Question 47. Who was Britain's longest-serving Prime Minister of the 20th century? A. Margaret Thatcher. B. Harold Wilson. C. Clement Attlee. D. Winston Churchill. Answer: A. Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher was Britain's longest-serving Prime Minister of the 20th century, holding office from 1979 to 1990. Question 48. What significant educational reform was implemented with the Butler Act of 1944? A. It introduced the modern system of comprehensive schools. B. It established the national curriculum. C. It provided free secondary education to all children. D. It segregated educational facilities by gender. Answer: C. It provided free secondary education to all children. The Butler Act of 1944, also known as the Education Act, significantly reformed education in Britain by providing free secondary education to all children. Question 49. What was the role of the Royal Proclamation of 1763 in American colonial history? A. It declared independence from British rule. B. It established administrative districts in the colonies. C. It restricted colonial expansion west of the Appalachian Mountains. D. It called for a tax on tea. Answer: C. It restricted colonial expansion west of the Appalachian Mountains. The Royal Proclamation of 1763 played a role in American colonial history by issuing a boundary, known as the Proclamation Line, which restricted colonial expansion to the west of the Appalachian Mountains to mitigate conflicts with Native Americans. Question 50. What critical battle in 1066 resulted in Norman control with England? A. The Battle of Hastings. B. The Battle of Agincourt. C. The Battle of Stamford Bridge. D. The Battle of York. Answer: A. The Battle of Hastings. The Battle of Hastings in 1066 was a critical battle that resulted in Norman control of England, with Duke William of Normandy defeating King Harold Uti and establishing Norman rule. Question 51. Which Prime Minister led Britain during the economic crisis of the 1970s? A. Edward Heath. B. James Callaghan. C. Harold Wilson. D. Margaret Thatcher. Answer: C. Harold Wilson. Harold Wilson was Prime Minister during part of the economic crisis of the 1970s, which were characterized by inflation and industrial unrest. Question 52. What was the significant impact of the War Acts in the 17th and 18th centuries on the British and colonial economies? A. They restricted wool production in the colonies. B. They encouraged the export of wool from Britain to the colonies. C. They mandated that wool could only be sold to Britain. D. They led to the development of the textile industry in the colonies. Answer: A. They restricted wool production in the colonies. The War Acts were designed to protect the British textile industry by restricting the export of wool from the colonies, thereby impacting colonial economies by limiting their ability to process and sell wool. Question 53. Who was the British monarch during the union with Ireland in 1801? A. George III. B. Victoria. C. Elizabeth I. D. James II. Answer: A. George III. King George III was the British monarch when the Act of Union with Ireland was enacted in 1801, creating the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. Question 54. What was the primary legislative outcome of the Chartist movement in the 19th century? A. The extension of the vote to all men. B. The introduction of secret ballots. C. The establishment of worker rights. D. No immediate legislative changes. Answer: D. No immediate legislative changes. While the Chartist movement was significant in advocating for political reforms and the extension of suffrage, it did not achieve immediate legislative success. However, it laid the groundwork for future electoral reforms. Question 55. What is the significance of the Battle of Britain in 1940? A. It was the first major military campaign fought entirely by air forces. B. It marked the beginning of World War II. C. It was the largest naval battle in British history. D. It led to the immediate end of the war. Answer: A. It was the first major military campaign fought entirely by air forces. The Battle of Britain in 1940 was significant as it was the first major military campaign fought entirely by air forces and marked a crucial turning point in World War II by preventing a German invasion. Question 56. In which year and under what treaty did Hong Kong return to Chinese sovereignty? A. 1997, Sino-British Joint Declaration. B. 1984, Treaty of Beijing. C. 1997, Hong Kong Handover Treaty. D. 1984, Sino-British Joint Declaration. Answer: A. 1997, Sino-British Joint Declaration. Hong Kong returned to Chinese sovereignty in 1997 under the terms of the Sino-British Joint Declaration, an agreement signed in 1984 that outlined the terms of the handover. Question 57. Who was the first British astronaut in space, and in what year did this occur? A. Tim Peake in 2015. B. Helen Sharman in 1991. C. Michael Foale in 1992. D. Piers Sellers in 2002. Answer: B. Helen Sharman in 1991. Helen Sharman became the first British astronaut to go into space in 1991, participating in the Soyuz mission to the Mir space station. Question 58. What significant public health legislation was passed in Britain in 1848? A. The Clean Air Act. B. The Public Health Act. C. The Health and Morals of Apprentices Act. D. The National Health Service Act. Answer: B. The Public Health Act. The Public Health Act of 1848 was a significant piece of legislation in Britain that addressed public health issues related to the Industrial Revolution, including sanitation and the control of infectious diseases. Question 59. Who was the first female Speaker of the House of Commons, and in what year did she assume office? A. Betty Boothroyd in 1992. B. Margaret Thatcher in 1979. C. Harriet Harman in 2007. D. Theresa May in 1997. Answer. A. Betty Boothroyd in 1992. Betty Boothroyd became the first female Speaker of the House of Commons in 1992, known for her strong and fair approach to managing debates in the House. Question 60. What was the major cause of the Peasants' Revolt in 1381? A. Discontent with the monarchy. B. Religious reforms. C. Economic hardships and oppressive taxation. D. Land disputes with France. Answer. C. Economic hardships and oppressive taxation. The major cause of the Peasants' Revolt in 1381 was